Very welcome to the Swedish Shareholders Association and Stora Aktiedagen in Stockholm. Now it's time for us to say hello to Mr. Seime from the exciting company Immunicum. Hi, Seime.
Thank you. Hello. Good morning.
Good morning. And the show is yours.
Thank you. All right. So my name is Simon Zuidermaker. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Immunicum. First of all, I have to give you an apology on behalf of Sven Roman, our CEO. He was planned to present today, but he was not able to make it last minute. So you have to make do with me again. So let me tell you a bit about Immunicum. First of all, we are a public company here at the Nasdaq Stockholm, and we are focusing on allogeneic cell-based immunotherapies. What does that mean? That means that it's allogeneic, that it doesn't come from the patient. It's not autologous, but it's allogeneic, which means it's off the shelf. We take a healthy donor, we take out immune cells, and we use those cells to treat not only one other patient, but a number of patients in a very specific way to treat cancer. I'll tell you more about the mechanism throughout this presentation, but that's really how we differentiate from other cell therapies that are in development. We are also quite in an advanced stage of development, where we've completed last year a phase 2 controlled study in kidney cancer, showing really the typical signs of an immunotherapy, a tumor having a response decreasing in size, even eradicated in a number of patients, and of course that also translates then into a difference in survival. But we're still following patients in this study for the survival. Apart from this phase 2 study, we've also completed 3 other phase 1 studies, showed very good safety profile in different combinations and in different indications, which is quite crucial in this space of immunotherapy. And we treated now over 100 patients in different tumor types. Now, the phase 2 results we've also sent in to the FDA in the US, and we received just before the summer an RMAT designation, which is a breakthrough designation that they grant to therapies that they believe are worthwhile of their support. And with their support, they try to help us define the next steps in the most optimal way for the FDA to approve it and get it to the market as efficient as possible. So it's a great support for our program, and of course an important validation of the results so far. From another angle, we also have a collaboration with Pfizer and Merck Serono, which of course is a nice validation from the industry that this is an interesting approach where they want to collaborate with us. And in this case, they supply their checkpoint inhibitor, their immunotherapy for the phase 2 part of a new study that we are conducting. And really that brings us into quite an exciting growth opportunity. We are in an exciting space of cell therapy, and especially in the next generation of allogeneic off-the-shelf cell therapies, treating cancer and really providing a breakthrough for these types of patients with cancer. And in terms of the platform and the cash situation, we still have a good situation when it comes to our current programs and value inflection points throughout 2021. But needless to say, we've also announced recently a proposed combination with a company called DC Prime, and I'll tell you about that more later this presentation. With the recent addition of the CEO, Sven Roman, we also have an experienced team in-house, which is crucial when it comes to a more complex therapy like cell therapy, where you really need to build an in-house organization to get this to the next phase of development and pioneering a new technology like cell therapy. Now, coming to that cell therapy, as I said, we start from a healthy donor. It's a bit similar to a blood donor. And we take out immune cells and we activate them in a very specific way, which mimics a bit how these cells respond to a viral infection. If you have a viral infection, the body can quickly recognize that there's something wrong, and they start activating and evolving the right immune cells to address that threat to the body. The problem with cancer is that it, of course, evolves from healthy cells, and that it's very difficult to recognize them for the immune system. And also the tumor evolves in a way that it keeps the immune system at a distance. So what we do is we activate immune cells from a donor. We inject them into the tumor tissue of a patient, just one lesion that we can access. And that creates this almost viral infection, but in a very sterile way, a very safe way, within that tumor tissue. And that involves the immune system from the patient to really create an immune response against that tumor. Because the beauty of the immune system is if you can get a response ongoing that is tumor specific, then you can really target not only locally that tumor tissue, but also systemically other metastatic lesions that patients may have, and really have a chance at curing cancer instead of just trying to delay it with, for example, chemotherapy. So this is really the promise of immunotherapy. And we are active in this field of immune primers and vaccines. What we are focusing on is really the neoantigen space. Now, neoantigen means that it's tumor-specific antigens that can be recognized by the body and target them specifically. In the past, there have been a lot of work on tumor-associated or self-antigens, which are antigens that are not that tumor-specific and especially not specific to the patient that is being treated. The issue there is that these vaccine approaches were quite promising. However, because they were not tumor-specific, and they were using, for example, the cells from the patient itself, which were not that potent, it didn't create the promise of immunotherapy. Now, the newer shift is towards the neoantigen field, where, for example, BioNTech, known for the COVID vaccine, of course, now, but also a company like Gritstone, these are really pioneering neoantigen vaccines. The problem is, if you want to have that tumor specific, that you need to build a vaccine per patient. You need to analyze the tumor tissue per patient and create a vaccine per patient. Now, that obviously is very time consuming and expensive. And that's why we are using this whole machinery, but then within the patient's own tumor tissue, creating an immune response within the patient and therefore having a tumor specific response while using an off-the-shelf approach that we can produce at any time. Now, some recent experiments we have done to really position ourselves in the landscape of cancer therapy. A promising immunotherapy that is being used in a lot of indications now is a checkpoint inhibitor targeting PD-1. Now, we've looked at a preclinical model where PD-1 doesn't have an effect. It's already resistant against that molecule. And if you add ilixadencel on top of that, you really start seeing a shift in the tumor response and inhibiting the tumor growth. Now, in the same model where CTLA-4, another checkpoint inhibitor targeting a different pathway, is actually quite active. It's already reducing the tumor growth, as you can see in the green curves. If we add ilixadencel on top of that combination, we actually start seeing complete responses, so complete disappearance of these tumors in animals. And that's really what we try to emphasize when we talk about the promise of immunotherapies, and especially combining immunotherapies, is that you're not only delaying the tumor, but also being able to potentially create a cure. Now, this is, of course, an animal experiment, but our hope is that the more we advance in our therapy and the different combinations we target, the closer we can get to the true effect of an immunotherapy and trying to provide a potential cure to patients. Now, if you look at our pipeline, this is reflected in what the studies we've done so far. We started back in 2012, actually, with a phase 1 study in kidney cancer where we added our cell therapy on top of the standard of care. Now, the standard of care back then was a kinase inhibitor, which is a more targeted version, but a bit similar to chemotherapy. The good thing of our experience in different phase 1 studies with kinase inhibitors is actually that we learned that some of them have a synergistic effect when it comes to immunotherapy. It's really enabling the immune response to overcome the resistance of the tumor. So we learned a lot from those studies and what synergistic combinations can take place when combining with the standard of care, and that's where we have recently completed the phase 2. But we've also moved to the new field of checkpoint inhibitors, combining two immunotherapies together, and that's now the ILIAD study that is ongoing. So very briefly about that phase 2 study. This study started in 2015, actually, was fully enrolled in the end in early 2018. So we have patients already that have been followed for at least 2.5 years, but some of them have been followed for 5 years. Now, because of this follow-up period, we start seeing some exciting differences in survival between the two groups, comparing our therapy, ilixadencel, on top of sunitinib, the standard of care, versus sunitinib alone. And these were patients that had primary kidney cancer and metastatic disease, and you follow to see if we can actually reduce that metastatic disease. Now, this was first of all the exciting part where we look at survival, is that you start seeing a difference the longer you follow patients between the groups. And that's purely because the longer you follow these groups, the more difference you see on the response. So patients that are not responding in both groups seem to have a similar survival pattern, as you would expect. But the difference in response between the groups is what leads to this long-term survival benefit. For example, we had in our group 5 complete responders, so patients that had a complete disappearance of their tumor, and in our group they're still alive, and some of them even crossing the 5-year follow-up period. While there in the control group there was only 1 complete responder, which was not confirmed, by the way, and also that patient died 3 years later. So this is a bit what you want to see in terms of an immunotherapy, that on top of the standard of care, you start already seeing a better tumor response, the occurrence of complete responses, which is not known for the typical standard cancer therapies, and of course survival. So we will continue following these patients, but these initial results are also quite promising, and of course was the reason why we received the FDA RMAT designation. Now, as for the ongoing study, this was with checkpoint inhibitors. We started the study in combination with pembrolizumab, which is really the market leader in this field, the one that is approved in a lot of indications now. Seeing if we can just add it on top of the standard dosing. We've treated now the first cohorts of this combination. Safety profile is looking very good, and that is, of course, the key question for this phase 1. But what we're also going to check is 3 different dose regimens. We've done the phase 2 study with 2 times 10 million cells being injected in the tumor. In this study, we also look at 3 times 10 million cells and even 1 cohort with a higher starting dose to really see if we can further optimize and make sure as many patients can respond to this therapy and this combination. Now, we're currently on schedule to have the last patient enrolled within the next few months. Then we go into this follow-up period. We start following patients, of course, for the continued treatment cycles, imaging, and seeing if the tumors start responding. So we expect to have more full safety and dosing results towards mid next year, second half of 2021. Now, we also recently communicated an updated strategy where, based on this phase 2 proof of concept that we have obtained in kidney cancer, we set out to make this really a commercial opportunity. We see a lot of benefit in continuing that combination with sunitinib in a smaller indication like sarcoma and GIST, where this combination is still the only treatment option to patients, and we believe that adding ilixadencel can really prove our concept again in a smaller indication and get that to the market in a faster and more efficient way. Now, of course, with ILIAD, the ILIAD study, we continue testing in combination with the market leader with checkpoint inhibitors. And of course, there we have new indications and indications that are very attractive to, let's say, the pharma partners that are looking at the larger indications. We've also seen a very promising opportunity in the CTLA-4 combination based on the preclinical results we've shown you in the beginning, and of course the RCC results in our phase 2. And that's something as a combination that we also believe can provide a breakthrough in the treatment of kidney cancer. And then, of course, based on the proof of concept, we now want to expand this potential into other cell therapies that are mechanistically similar or can expand our markets. And in that relation, we have recently announced the proposed combination with DC Prime. So DC Prime is a Dutch biotech that is developing an allogeneic dendritic cell-based vaccine. What is very exciting about this company is that it's very complementary in terms of the markets. They're focusing on blood cancers. They have a phase 2 ongoing AML, a type of leukemia, and they do it with a different type of approach, having a cancer vaccine, so a cancer cell line that is used as a dendritic cell vaccine. And because of that, they can treat patients, for example, that are in remission and make sure that the cancer doesn't come back, which is very different from our approach, where, of course, we treat patients that have tumors and we try to reduce that tumor size or even try to make them disappear. They also use this based on a cell line and have a different manufacturing process, where we focus on healthy donors as a source material. And of course, with this cell line, we also believe that you can further expand into different types of solid tumor and also larger indications when it comes to scale. So it's a very complementary company in terms of the technology. But what is crucial in this field is that we both have this leading expertise in allogeneic dendritic cell biology. And that's really the next generation in this field, where not a lot of companies are active, and we can really truly build leadership around this platform. In terms of the organizations, we actually have two very lean organizations that fit well together, not only on the management team and board level, but maybe more importantly on the R&D side. So DC Prime has, for example, a lot of facilities on the research side and also process development for manufacturing, while Immunicum is doing a lot of outsourcing of those activities. And bringing the organizations together, we can really get more control over these processes, do much more in-house research, and again, build leadership around this type of cell therapy. They're based in Leiden in the Netherlands, which is a leading European biotech hub. And we, of course, keep our Nasdaq listing and become a Sweden-based company together with DC Prime. And what is important in this transaction is that their majority shareholder, Van Herk, becomes a strong anchor investor to the combined entity. And Van Herk is one of the most successful investors in EU biopharma. You may know them from Zealand Pharma and, for example, BioInvent. But globally, they're also very known for their success stories in Galapagos, before they were even at the US Nasdaq, but also Ablings before it was acquired, and a number of these stories. So it's really investing into growth stories, and with that, we can put out the joint ambition to build a leading global company in this field. Now, some quick terms around the transaction. The technicality is that we acquire, of course, the shares of DC Prime, and it becomes part of Immunicum. We will issue shares to the current shareholders because of that, and therefore Van Herk, the current majority shareholder, will also become a large shareholder in Immunicum. Both Van Herk and our current largest shareholder, AP4 in Sweden, have committed to this combination. As I said, we will also get part of the management team and the board joining Immunicum, really strengthening that and building a more global team. And I think in terms of the timelines, what is important here to share is that December 18th, we have the EGM to vote on this matter. But we also have next week on Wednesday an event where we give a more detailed update to shareholders and of course also answer questions that you might have. So please join us for next week as well. Now, a bit of the outlook beyond December 18th, we're joining companies with two studies ongoing. We, of course, have the checkpoint inhibitor study where it's going to deliver important results during 2021. DC Prime has a phase 2 ongoing in AML. We expect towards the end of 2021 to have the results from that study, but we already know that they're going to present interim results of the study at ASH. And ASH is a major oncology conference where they were actually selected for an oral presentation, which is quite an exciting validation from that conference. And they will present those results on December 5th, so actually this Saturday. So something to look out for on the short term, but definitely we want to propose this combination to really build long-term value with not only Immunicum and Elixir Cell, but build a pipeline and leadership around this technology platform. So I think I'll leave it at that. And if there's any questions, I'm of course happy to answer them.
Thank you, Signe. My first question is about this merger, and the stock market is not that positive to the merger, and the share price of Immunicum decreased. What is your comment on that?
Well, it's clear that, of course, this is with public companies always the case that you have news that is coming out of nowhere, and we have to make sure that we get the story across, right? I can tell you that this has been something that we've been working on for quite some time. That is coming from the management teams as a joint effort to create long-term value based on the synergy that we see in not only the platforms but also the organizations, getting an investor on board. But it's really up to us to make sure that people understand what the value might be. We understand that people might have different opinions or were hoping for different events to take place. But we truly believe that this is going to make the company grow for the long term. Of course, we want to manage short-term expectations, but we hope that with presenting more detail around this, and of course, in the years to come, we can prove that this is really going to build a company for the long term, and of course, with that also generate value for shareholders. But we understand, we've seen the sentiment. We get, of course, questions coming into our mailbox as well. And part of that is also why we have another event planned next week, where we really hope we can answer most of those questions in more detail, so that everyone is informed, at least for the EGM, to make an informed decision. And of course, we hope that they continue with us on this journey for the long term.
So it's just mostly a question about communication, and the market hasn't taken all the answers to them yet.
Yeah, and it's quite something to take in, right? So we understand that. What I can tell you is, of course, we've been working on this for a while, but I can also tell you that there's still a lot to be done when it comes to forming joint development plans, forming a joint business plan. So because of that, there are sometimes details that we cannot share yet. But it's clear that we need to work the coming weeks to get everyone as informed as possible. So we've definitely taken note of that.
Okay, that's good. Would you say that this merger between these two companies will lower the risk in the company?
Well, that's one of the elements that we've been focusing on, also with Sven joining in August, who was very supportive of that strategy. You know, Elixir and Cell is a very exciting opportunity, right? And we can target multiple indications, but it's still one product. It's better for the company, and in the end, therefore, also better for Elixir and Cell if we can build a pipeline around that has not only, let's say, one value inflection point next year, but multiple value inflection points per product in development at different stages in different areas of interest. So we can also, for example, when talking to partners, potential partners in the pharma and biotech industry, that we can not only show Elixir and Cell in one or two indications, but we can show different products in different indications. And with that, also create more interest from pharma and biotech to not only step into Elixir, but also in different opportunities. Also, from a financial perspective, investors might be looking for not only Elixir, but some early stage potential. So with that, we can present, I think, a more mature company that has a pipeline with different outcomes over time, and that should, in the end, attract new investors and also collaborations from pharma and biotech.
Do you see any problems at all with this merger? How about the cultures in the two companies? Are they about the same? So you can collaborate?
I can tell you that, yeah. So maybe I'm in an interesting situation there, because of course I'm from Holland, so I know very much Dutch culture, and I know the people from DC Prime. The two companies have known each other for a while and have even done some collaborations because of this unique situation where we are in with our platforms. I think when it comes to the current situation, you start having more and more international companies anyway. So when we talk about culture, I think both companies are quite international and will fit in together quite well. What is very nice in this organization is that they have a lot more research in-house. And I think that's really something that, Immunicum has been mostly pioneering and pushing forward in clinical development as soon as possible. And with that, we are in a stage where, of course, we have exciting phase 2 data. But when you look at in-house research, control over your manufacturing, for example, these are key additions that the DC Prime team and their facilities will bring. So I'm actually really looking forward to have those integration months ahead of us, and I really don't see an issue in terms of the culture.
Okay. Will this merger speed up your R&D, you would say?
It will strengthen the company, and with that, it will increase the quality of our R&D. I think we really have to underline here that process development and manufacturing of a cell therapy is such a key topic that a lot of cell therapy companies globally are putting emphasis on. It's not just producing a molecule in a pill, right? You need to have more control over your manufacturing so that you can really scale up according to your development plan. And we've been doing a lot of work there, which is, of course, visible, I think, also in our reports, in collaborations with BioNTech in Germany and Hitachi, or Minaris, as it's called now, in the US. But getting also more in-house support of that will increase the chances of our product being developed according to what the authorities also want to see when you get to the finish line. So we believe that a stronger, more mature and larger company will increase the chances of success for Elixa, and will create a better financing climate and collaboration climate, which of course can generate the funds that can increase the chances of your development plan to the market.
Okay, and here's a little bit different question, but killing cancer cells is the main goal for you and immune defense work. But what about the diseases? Can one imagine to have a major effect on other diseases?
We've had those brainstorm discussions internally, of course. You can even find in some of our patents that, of course, for infectious diseases, some of these mechanisms also play an important role. We even come from a mechanism of action that is borrowing a lot of the nature's biology for treating viral infections, right? So even in the rise of the COVID pandemic, we've been brainstorming about the potential of using, for example, cell therapy to create a more optimal immunity. I think when you look at diseases, a cell therapy like this is really where you want to have all the mechanisms in place to target the most difficult disease, and in cancer, that also means that you can have the most impact on patients. So having a slightly more optimal immunization against, for example, an infectious disease with a cell therapy is maybe not worthwhile, while if you use a cell therapy to really make a difference for a patient and a chance of being cured from cancer, I think that's really where we see that our cell therapy is worthwhile and can make a difference.
My last question to you will be, where do you think the company is standing 5 years from now?
So those are, of course, quite some predictions we can make and forward-looking statements. So I'll try to keep it a bit open. What is clear from joining, we're not joining two clinical assets here. We're joining two platforms with a lot of shared underlying conviction about this type of pioneering technology. So where we stand in 5 years from now is, of course, that not only our current clinical assets have moved on in development, getting closer to the market, but also a pipeline that is coming from a lot of exciting preclinical ideas we have at the moment that, of course, still need to mature and get into clinical development, and target different types of of indications and combinations. So within 5 years, we can have a much richer pipeline. And a richer pipeline, of course, can mean that you can have also different collaborations there. But as I said, those are a lot of forward-looking statements. But it's clear that a richer pipeline can make this company grow and also attract new investors and new collaborations.
Thank you very much, Seime, for bringing this information to us, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.